Greetings! My name's Dwayne and I'm excited to show you I've come up with patterns for making gnome shoes and boots. Actually, I've got 4 patterns for gnome shoes and 2 for boots. The boots you can see are just a little bit bigger and different, little bit of different style. I've come up with things that are more of a gnome and elf type shoe with a curve to it there. Some that are just straight toe and some that are smaller. Some that have the collars, some that don't. I guess I don't even know if that's the term, a collar or not with the shoes, but and as I said, different sizes here so you can do with different size gnomes. Now I call these boots just because they are a little bit bigger than the other ones. So gives a lot of different functions, a lot of different patterns, a lot of different creativity, and these are just the basics here. So what I wanted to show was just how to do the basic for them, not putting any detail into them yet, but these are so many different things that we can do as far as adding character to them, adding designs, adding some fur or ruffle, adding some lace. I look forward to doing some felting on them. If you do some needle felting, putting some designs into them. So I was coming up with some ideas and I was trying to come up with something different from my normal that I normally do the shoes, which for years you've probably seen the shoes that are just the Dollar Tree simple shoes that we cover. And for years people have asked, well, how can you do something different? I don't have the Dollar Tree shoes in my area. I'm not available, or they're out of them. And I've done those for years with almost all my characters, all my gnomes for some reason. Unny the gnome here, even his shoes, we're done with those Dollar Tree simple shoes. So I wanted to get away from that. I wanted to be able to use something with my bigger gnomes too, my gnomes that I use with cones. And these gave me an access and a way that I could do that and make something that's a little bit more creative, something that has some more style than just the same old plain gnome shoe. And I know I could decorate these a little bit more, but they're still the same shoe. But here I have some character to them, and I found something easy. I spent a couple of nights working on a couple ideas, gluing things together, getting out the shoes, getting out the eggshells, getting out all the different pieces, and I threw them all away. I hated the idea. And then one morning it hit me how to simply make these. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how I've made these shoes. Let me put them aside here so we got some room here. And as I said, I came up with 6 patterns to do different sizes, different things with them. So you can make them with the smaller gnomes, you can make them with the pool gnomes, the fabric gnomes, anything as far as the sock gnomes. And I simply drew out all my patterns here. So I have my different shapes with the collars, without the collars, different ways of making them. And the great thing about it is you can make them all with just one piece of felt. That's right. I try to keep things simple, and if you've seen any of my other videos, I like to keep things down to one piece of felt if possible. And for this, you're actually going to just take the one piece, fold it over, and I'm going to go with a lighter color so you can see what I'm doing and everything. But I'm going to just take that. I have my pattern. I've already taken one of my patterns here and cut it out. Let me grab a lighter piece of felt here. And I've traced it on my felt. I've cut it out, I've folded it, traced my pattern onto that. I've just taken a pen. You could take anything as far as your sewing markers or anything. My wife's got a bunch of the invisible ones that she can just wash off. And so I've just taken a marker, traced around my pattern, and this is the sole, the bottom of the shoe for there. That gives me both boots, both bottom of my shoes there. Simple as that on one piece. All I do then is take my scissors and cut out the pattern. So I folded it over, cutting around. What I like to do, especially up at the top, because the top is going to show a little bit more on my boot, is try to cut inside the line. Just cut inside the line so my line's not showing if I'm using something like a dark pen or a dark marker. I suggest you cut inside your line there. So we would cut out our patterns, get our boot there. As you can see, it's just folded over. And then I am just going to start sewing. And I recommend sewing with this. A lot of things I say, okay, you can use your glue gun and glue it. I have found sewing just looks better. It's easier to work with. Also because you're going to be turning it inside out. And I've marked up here on my calendar, on my pattern, the spot here where I start to just sew, and I sew it down to the bottom of the toe here. And each pattern I did that too. I marked it where start sewing at the very top there, where you're going to have your opening, and right down to the toe there is where you're headed towards when you're sewing. Reason being is because then you're going to sew the base onto the bottom there. So I'm going to grab a needle and thread here, and if you've seen any of my videos also, you'll know I use the blanket stitch and I hand sew. And show you quickly how to do that. Now you can do a straight stitch, you can do like I said, a sewing machine, whatever you do as far as sewing, but the blanket stitch is just over the top here, coming through and right into the loop there. And for those who do get into sewing a lot and everything, I pretty much use a 1/8 seam allowance. So what that means is I'm going down about 1/8 of an inch when I'm going through there. So I have about 1/8 of an inch that my thread is here as far as the seam. And I just go along. Oop, I forgot to loop through there. So since I forgot to loop through, I could just tuck that in there, pull it, and there we have it. So even if I miss it there at first, I can get it again. Come down, go through, back and easy. And it's simple. It's just nice, easy stitch to do. Again, I've got to go through, and I pull it tight. I want to make sure I have tight stitches there. And go through. And I'm going to take this all the way down. Pull up another one here. All the way down to the bottom here. So I show a little point down here where I'm going to take that to. So let me grab one here that I've already got, since we're already around the corner there. And I've cut out my base, my little bottom part there, sort of a little eggshell shape here. I'm just going to open that up, and I line up the top there. Now with some of the other boots, they actually have the boots and the shoes, like the elf shoes, the longer ones, they actually have, I have a point that it comes to. So you'd take the point and just put the point right into that piece right there. Grab your thread. And again, I'm just going to go around with my blanket stitch, and I'm going to go around the whole side here and just sew it right into it. And I found this so much easier. I was sitting there trying to glue things together, trying to cut pieces out. I've watched 2 or 3 other videos of people trying to, do things where they're duct taping, this bottom of the shoes. And it was so hard trying to come up with, other ideas for shoes for some of my bigger gnomes. And I wanted something that I could keep simple, something that I could do for both. The smaller gnomes, which are usually like my 6-inch gnomes, which are usually, I would have to say, about the size of like sock gnomes, or if you have my felt patterns, the regular ones. But if I'm doing a larger cone one, if you've seen some of mine, the Knight recently, or the King, or some of the other ones that I play with my stories, I've had to come up with different types of shoes to make. And I got other patterns that I've come up with for them, but they are a little bit harder to play with, and some of them involved using some of the craft foam and other things too. But this was just some easy way that I finally came up with that I could do with one piece of felt. And just simply sewing around. And again, I'm using lighter colors, so hopefully you can see better, and trying to make it so you can see that I'm just going around there. And again, we're going to switch off here time-wise here. And tried to keep everything on here so you could see, and just sewed all the way around till I get to the other side of the boot there. Then, this is the hardest part I found. Not as much with just the regular boot here, but when you get into the other ones where you have sort of the curve to it, more of the elf or the witch. I mean, this is a great thing if you're going into the holiday seasons, if you're going into doing the Halloween elves, Halloween witches, I'm sorry. If you're looking to do like the witch ones, that's great to put a curve into. It just takes a little bit more of turning it inside out. And then I take the collar, and again, I'm sorry if I don't have the technical terms, what it is, and I roll that down. Simple as that, I've made my boot. Now, what I do now is I take some of my polyfill, and I stuff the toe. Now here's where, if you want to put some weight into it, you can put your weights into it. I use kitty litter, but if you have pellets or something else that you want to put in there, you can. But I usually put stuffing, my polyfill, right in the front part of it. Tucks it in, especially when I'm doing one of the curved elf ones for an elf or a witch. I'm going to stuff it so I get that good look right there. And I get it to right about the part there. Now, I'm not going to show you here how I connect it to my gnomes or anything, but I am going to show you how I would then put something in here, because some people do have their own way of already putting together their shoes, the base and everything like that. So if you wanted to put a piece of cardboard down in the very bottom, you could do that. What I've done is I've taken regular shirt cardboard and I have cut out an individual piece. If I'm using more of a boot, I'll use something wider. If I'm using one of the shoe patterns, I have a smaller piece, and it's just about 4 inches long. And we're just going to take that and roll it up. I roll up the piece of cardboard, stick it inside there, and I can unroll it a little bit. And there I have my support. So what I'm going to do now is just stick my kitty litter, whatever you use again, in there. If you're using the dowel rods, I actually use nails. I use a longer nail and everything when I'm using my foam that I'm using just a short leg on. If I'm using a longer leg, I would use a dowel rod. But normally, I'll show it sometime, I use a nail that actually goes up into the foam there. But I would fill that with the kitty litter and then glue everything down in there. The other option, for those of you who do have the Dollar Tree shoes, you have these ones. The Amazon has the larger ones, and I've used these actually with some of my larger characters too. But I'm talking like the Dollar Tree, the small size shoes. If you have those and you still you want to use those to connect to your gnome, this is great because they slide right in. You can put some glue on the bottom. You can put some weight into the bottom like we've done before. Put that in there. Put your shoe right in there. And again, add your kitty litter, add your pellets, add whatever you want inside there and your dowel rod. And that'll get you your shoe. I figured that out because I was still looking for some way that I could use those shoes because I have a couple dozen. I've bought out whatever I could. Now, when I do attach it to a gnome, I can glue my top here together a little bit, bring it closer if I'm using a smaller one. If I'm using a larger gnome, I don't need to. So it's just a way of giving me a couple different ideas of a simple, beautiful, different shoe. And I look forward to putting these together on a number of different gnomes I'm coming up with. I like to do a lot of woodland type gnomes, but as I said, this is going to be a great one to have as far as doing more of an elf gnome or doing something like a witch gnome if you want to get something that's got a little bit more character to it. You can put that into that and just easily, like I said, come up with different styles there, different ways of doing it, a simple boot, and then decorating it yourself, coming up with different ways of putting things around. So that's the basics to it. That's what I have come up with here with the different patterns. I just wanted to get on and show you how I did that, how quickly it is. It is something that you would need to do sewing on, as I said. I would not recommend doing the hot gluing of it together just because of the size of it, because you do have to pull it through, inserting it there to get that inverted. But it does. They come out real nice, sweet shoes, easy to do, and I just love the way that's come together. And we'll have this available in my Etsy as far as Heartfelt Creations 99 for the patterns there available. So thank you. I look forward to showing you what I've done with some of the gnomes over the next couple of weeks here, building them and putting together the shoes with them. And I look forward to seeing some of your work. Thank you.